Friends, we find ourselves once again in another Dividend Portfolio video, now for the month of May 2023, and life is gonna continue to pass regardless. I'm always gonna show up here bi-weekly to just remind you, at least until hopefully once again we can go weekly, but time will tell. At the moment, I'm sure we all have a lot going on in our own personal lives. But just to share a little bit, I'm going to show up here regardless. I'm currently on a hot spot. We spent all day yesterday moving to our new place. When I first graduated just college, became a licensed nurse, we started living in an apartment complex, a 1-bed, 1-bath, and then we moved to a 2-bed, 1-bath, and now we're at a 3-bed, 2.5-bath. And we're still leasing, but that's an example of progression. We'd probably be homeowners by now, but I also don't like the market right now in real estate. But that's besides the point. That's just an example of me trying to let you guys know I'm going to be here regardless to help you, help myself, continue to find the motivation to continue to be a dividend investor. Because this journey is long, friends. If you've been on it for a while, you know this already. And if you're new to the game, just know it is a slow, grinding process. It does not happen overnight, but that's okay. It builds up a lot of different attributes along the way. Mental strength helps you focus on the future, plan ahead, look at the vision that you have in your own mind of where you want to go, where you want to be. In a few years, in a couple decades from now, it forces you to think of a lot of things. But that's time, friends, as it continues to tick. But as always, this is a portfolio review, so we're going to go a little bit more in depth than we normally do in my other videos. If this is your first time, welcome. If you've been here for a couple of these, you probably know what to expect. But regardless, I'll just remind everybody, in this portfolio review, I'm going to tell you how much I fund my portfolio and how often. I'll also go over some of my sector allocations and percentages, along with some of the best and worst performers per sector. I'll also go over some of the current holdings that I have and give you my number of current holdings. And I'll also go over the dividend portfolio's yield. What is my expense ratio as well? It's going to be pretty low. I'm also going to go over some of my current short and long-term plans for the portfolio. And then last but not least, always my favorite part, I'm going to share with you how much now I make in dividends. How much does my current dividend portfolio pay me each month? But first, friends, there's two things I wish I knew when I started dividend investing, and I want to share those two things with you. I took some time to think about it, but I feel like these are the two that if someone told me when I first started, I think they'd be the most helpful. For this first one, you won't start getting dividends right away. And this is very true. But when I first started dividend investing, I got a little impatient. It's like you put all this time to create this dividend portfolio that, you feel is going to take you into the future, right? Into this, financial retirement that's comfortable in the future, maybe create this steady stream of passive income for you. And maybe you don't expect it right away, but you were expecting to see something, pretty soon. But the reality is, you're not going to start getting dividends right away. Oftentimes, dividends are paid on a quarterly basis. Some are paid monthly, but it just really depends when you actually go to create your dividend portfolio. You may not see some dividends for a couple months, because maybe the ones you're holding are on this quarterly basis. So just keep that in mind. I always like sharing this story, and if you've been here for a while, you've heard it plenty of times. But my very first dividend payout was from Apple stock of 8 pennies. 8 pennies. And as you're going to see in this video here in a little bit, I get paid $14, $15. Some of them even, if it's an ETF, I get paid $60, $50 or so. So this thing snowballs. It's exponential growth. But just not the start. You're probably not going to see any dividends at all. And if you do, it might literally be a couple pennies. But over time, friends, stick with it. It will be worth it. Trust me. I've been in this game already for almost 3 years. It'll be 3 years come July. And I will definitely say it was worth it. And if I had to start this over, I would start it again. Because to me, it's worth it. Because it builds a lot along the way, but it's building something for you to thank yourself in the future for, if that makes sense. The future you is going to thank this past version of you today for doing this and creating this financial nest egg that even if you don't need, friends, it is there and it is extra. And when you go to compare your retirement to other people, if you have everything they have, but on top of it, you have a dividend portfolio that pays you passive income, I mean, you're just going to thank yourself even more. That may be, a nice car payment in retirement for that nice Porsche Panamera that you want. I hope to get one sooner rather than later, but yes, that is one of my goal cars. I don't like to say dream cars, but a goal car, because my dreams are when I sleep, and oftentimes those don't become a reality, but goals do. Goals can become a reality. The Porsche Panamera is my goal car. Stay tuned. You may see it. You may see me having it sometime in the future. But for the second one, friends, it's actually not a popular way to invest for a younger crowd. I wish someone told me this when I first started, because you go to create this dividend portfolio, you go to start, and then you go to look around and no one else is dividend investing. So then you go ahead and you turn to YouTube and, okay, this is where the community is. But in real life, it's pretty hard, especially if you're young, especially if you're in your 20s. I mean, I started this dividend portfolio, I think at the age of 23 or 24. I'm 27 now, turning 28 later this year. And when I started, the only people that I knew dividend investing were on YouTube. No one in my close circle of knowing people in the day-to-day was dividend investing. People knew what dividends were, but it was typically an older crowd. And even then, they weren't strictly a dividend investor. They're like, oh yeah, this stock pays me dividends, but that's kind of it. Or they knew about dividends, but that was also it. But if you're starting a dividend portfolio in your 20s, do know it's a lonely road. It's quite isolating. There's not many people out there that invest in this way, which is to me, a little ironic. It's somewhat of a conundrum, because this dividend portfolio or this dividend investing strategy, it's actually most useful to start when you're young, and most people don't start it at an early age. So, it's kind of ironic in this sense that whenever you actually go to hear, about other people dividend investing, it's not that they're old, but they're older, in their 30s, their 40s, their 50s, their 60s. But if you're in your 20s and you go to invest for dividends, just know it's not going to be a popular way to invest, and you're quite likely not to find another dividend investor around your age. So that's just another thing I wish someone would have told me, because it's a little bit of a lonely road. And come turn to YouTube, I'll be here. I know there's other great channels here, but if you're in your 20s and you want to relate, I'm here with you. It's a lonely road, but guess what? Maybe all of us can thank ourselves later in the future and say, hey, we stuck with it. Hey, we're in our 30s and 50s or whatever now, 60s. And yeah, back in my 20s, I started dividend investing, and it was probably one of the best decisions I made. And that's what I envision for myself, and hopefully for many of you in the future. But now going into the dividend portfolio review, friends. Here we are today at $65,958.16. And this is on the all-time review. As you can see, we currently have a 16.23% return, which equates to a total gain of $5,200 which equates to a total gain of $5,713. And let's take a little closer zoom here, because this is always one of my favorite parts lately. Earned dividends amount is 3,341 of this 5,700, and market gain is only 2,300. So I'm practically making $1,000 more. My portfolio has made me $1,000 more from dividends than it has from market gain. And that right there, my friends, is why dividend investing, even in a down market, is so great, because the markets haven't been great lately. I mean, they've been okay. If not, maybe that's even giving it some grace. The markets haven't been too well. They've been rocky. It's kind of hard to know exactly what to invest in right now. But if you're a dividend investor, all that really doesn't matter. You're investing to create this passive stream of income. And at the same time, I mean, you're still doing the same thing everyone else is doing. You're investing for growth in your portfolio. You're investing to create something substantial. I mean, you're getting the dividends, and even if you really have to, you can liquidate your portfolio. So you're doing the growth, and you're also getting the dividends. Many growth investors, though, will argue that when the markets are hot, you do kind of get left behind because the growth just isn't there. But everyone has to pick their poison. I think so far into the future, I'd rather have dividends or slowly create this passive stream of income, which will greatly benefit me in the future, versus running these hot streaks up as far up as they go, just to kind of see them dwindle away. Which it was, which it has been lately with a lot of tech stocks. I mean, they run, and they kind of come back down, and they run again, and then they come back down. And then just to show you here, friends, over the last week, it hasn't been the greatest, but it's been practically a flat line. So it's really no win, no loss, with a return of 0.03%. And as far as how much do I fund my portfolio currently, because I know this is a question often, but if you've been here before, you kind of already know. In the past, I used to invest $500 every single week. Yes, every single week. So that was about $2,000 every month. But then I think I did that for almost 2 years. And then my strategy kind of changed because I'm trying to save up for real estate, trying to save up a cash reserve to hopefully be, in alignment for a purchase of a home in the next 3 years is my goal. My goal is hopefully to buy a home before the age of 30 or, by 30 if things align. So because of that, I changed my $500 every single week to $100. And the rest of that, I've been funneling into, a high yield savings account, on the back end. But at this time, friends, it's $100 every single week that I invest into this dividend portfolio, which equates to, about $400 a month on average. And that's the pace that I go at. And then just to show you down here some of my sector allocations. But first, if you're curious, there's always a link to my in my description box, and you could check out my pie on your own time. But as far as sectors here, let me just put them, let's go from best gains. Or actually, let's go from target allocation. So my biggest sector right now, and I kind of had these sectors set since the beginning, but at this time I have real estate at 13%, followed by consumer staples at 12%, have an ETF at 10%, another index fund at 10%, then have tech, utilities, financials. So from right here, you can see our biggest holding is real estate at 13%, followed by consumer staples at 12%. And then we also have the ETF here and the index fund, both at 10%. My tech is also at 10%. And then, so on and so forth, all the way down until my consumer discretionary set at 1%. And, the 1% is just one holding in here. It's McDonald's. I always show it because it's just one. But all these other ones, for example, let's take a look at tech. You have quite a bit. I have a total of 6 here. So you can see Apple, Nvidia, Visa, which one's my biggest holding. So Apple, Nvidia, Visa, Cisco, IBM, Oracle. And Nvidia, again, it's been killing it even more. There was a period of time where it really blew up, and then it kind of came back down to earth. But it looks like it's up there again at 242% return. So that's pretty significant. It does have the lowest dividend yield, I believe, out of all of them. But this one is, when you consider a growth dividend hold, I like to think of Nvidia because it has a future ahead of it, a long runway, if you will. At least that is the picture, right? And then we do have Oracle here. Pretty significant, 86% return. I'll take it. And then as far as some of my best performers, just in terms of sectors, it looks like energy and tech are leading the way, followed by my McDonald's here, my consumer discretionary, and then financials. And then as far as the red, it looks like real estate. And it was actually like this last month as well. But I personally feel like the real estate market has been going on a downtrend. If you have been a frequent, observer of houses on Zillow, for example, you'll recognize that oftentimes the houses are going to stay on the market longer, and you're actually going to be seeing reduced prices. That's something we did not see even just a couple months ago, let alone a year ago. So I'm not too surprised. Communication is also down 12%, and then healthcare is healthcare. I'm a nurse. I have a healthcare sector in here with a couple holdings, but they're down 9% overall. But they're down 9% overall as a sector. And then now, in terms of some of the data for my portfolio, let's go into the research tab. Let's go into, my pies. Let's go down here until Jesse's cash flow. And then this is some of the data behind my Jesse's cash flow portfolio. This is over a 5-year mark. Apparently we would have seen a 77% flat line, or a 0.77% flat line, I should say, over the last year, over the last quarter, over the last year, 3 years. So it looks like it's been a little glitchy, so it's not probably very accurate, as you can see, but take it with a grain of salt. So I'm not even gonna pay that too much attention. But as far as some of the data, I have 51 holdings in my dividend portfolio at the moment, and I have had almost this many since the very beginning, I would say. And my vision one day is to have a multi-million-dollar dividend portfolio. And I also enjoy holding, certain stocks on my own. So, as you're going to see here with the expense ratio, it's up to you how you want to manage your own dividend portfolio. Do you like having fun managing it yourself? Do you want to be completely hands-off, or do you want to be, somewhat hands-on and partially hands-off? That's something for you to decide. So 51 holdings is for me. That's what I decided. And as you can see, my expense ratio reflects that. It's a portfolio that I, for the most part, do manage, and I enjoy it. It's a process. You learn along the way. But as you can see, I do have an expense ratio of 0.01%, which is practically nothing, but it's mainly from the ETF and the index fund that I do hold, and maybe a little bit from real estate. I'm trying to think back, but for the most part, it's just the ETF and the index fund that I do hold. And as far as the dividend yield at this time, it's 3.165%, which is practically right in the middle, or on the upper end, actually, of where I want. And as far as my dividend yield, it's 3.165%, which is pretty on par with where I want it to be. I'm always happy with my dividend yield being anywhere between 2.8 or 2.7, all the way up to maybe 3.3%. So anywhere in between there, I'm chilling. I'm totally fine with that. And we continue moving forward. But let's go back to the home here just for a second. So what are my current plans with this portfolio? If you've seen my last week's video, or if you've seen my last month's video, it hasn't changed too much since then. But my short-term plan is to continue to funnel $100 every single week into this dividend portfolio. Continue to go at this pace. I still have my eyes set on creating a cash reserve to invest in real estate. As much as I love dividend investing, I do want to continue to diversify and hopefully one day get into real estate. Have my dividends, have my real estate, have my pension, have my income from my, employer, whether that's working for the state or maybe one day, working for myself. And, if that ends up happening. But ideally, that is my plan on the short term. On the long term, it's probably buying a house. I mean, that's like my medium to long term plan at this moment. I really do believe that within the next 5 years or so, the housing opportunity may open up wider, but we just have to wait and see. And as far as like my long-term plan, I mean, I do want to continue to aim and align myself to be able to retire by the age of 50. It might be 52 if I'm still a state employer, but 50 to 52, and have all these things that I mentioned: my real estate, my dividend portfolio, my pension, and ultimately have a career that maybe it doesn't feel like it's work every single day, but something I can see myself doing even into my 50s and 60s. Because I used to say it when I was younger, but I don't think there's ever really a point where you don't want to work anymore. I think the key is just to do something that doesn't feel like work, and also at the same time, but also just not have that chained effect, right? That feeling that you can't just leave. Right now, if you've reached a point in your career where you're like, man, I'm one bad day from leaving this place and I can afford it, I feel like that's where, the true freedom lies. Having that freedom to choose. But now let's take a quick look. I mean, this is the part, my favorite part, but I know the part that a lot of people look forward to, and it's how much does my dividend portfolio currently pay me in dividends. So here we are currently on the Div Tracker. As you can see, an annual dividend income of $2,066.53, and this is for a portfolio in the size of, here it comes, $65,958.19. So 3 pennies off, but that's practically the buying power that I have here in my M1 Finance. So it's actually fairly accurate today. I did a good job at inputting the numbers. I still have to do it manually, but this is the Div Tracker app on the Apple Store if you're curious. I'm not affiliated, but it's just one I've been using since the dawn of time of my dividend portfolio. But now if we break it down to monthly, and as far as my dividend yield, here on the Div Tracker, it says it's 3.26%. So somewhat close to M1 Finance. I mean, in between either of them, I'm totally okay with that. I will take it. But that's going to be it, friends. Thank you once again for stopping by, as time is passing among us all. We are here. I mean, on this earth, all of us. And it's just a matter of what it is that you decide to do with your time while you're here. Have a plan, have a vision, continue to aim for it every single day. Because as long as you're in alignment with that outcome that you desire, there's no reason why you shouldn't be able to achieve it, or at least come close, or at least have some resemblance of it. If I say I want to retire by the age of 50 to 52, I mean, that's pretty realistic. Now it's what do I have to do in between that time and now to attain that goal? And this is just part of the process. Part of it is create a dividend portfolio. And as always, friends, I will see you on the next video in about 2 weeks. But as always, friends, carry on.